Oxford from the inside. The good, the bad, but always the truth. Hi, I'm Abbie, and welcome to this episode of Oxford from the Inside. The good, the bad, but always the truth. And today we are joined by Jack. Would you like to introduce yourself, Jack?
Hi, I'm Jack. I am a second year student studying enterprise and entrepreneurship at Oxford Brookes.
And yeah, welcome to the show. Fun fact, Jack is actually my twin brother. And as you may have guessed, today we'll actually be talking about living in Oxford and like the experiences of a student living in Oxford from the perspectives of an Oxford student and an Oxford Brookes student. So let's get to it. So I was just wondering, as like a nice broad question for you, what does an average day look like for you as an Oxford Brookes student?
Okay. As people may generally be aware with Oxford Brookes and compared to the University of Oxford, Oxford Brookes has a considerably less workload. Obviously, it's very subject specific. So if you picked a very intense sort of heavy workload subject, more like medicine, then it might be on par, maybe just a bit less than that of University of Oxford. But generally speaking, the courses at Brookes don't have as much work, so that enables me to have more free time to explore Oxford and do various things. My general day is I have to admit, I can be a little lazy from time to time. I like to sleep in a little bit, maybe until midday. But if I discipline myself to get up early, I will go to the gym. I have time to go to the gym, which is not a far walk from me. It's a short walk into the town centre. And once I'm done at the gym, I might do a bit of shopping in town, what have you, and I'll come home, crack on with a bit of work, bit of assignment work, something like that. And usually I'll end the evening with a good movie. I like to get at least one movie in before I go to sleep. Another bonus as well to having the lesser workload is that I've been able to pick up a part-time student job at the local Nando's. One of the local Nando's is in Oxford. So I do that on the evenings where it doesn't conflict with any seminars I'll have at Brookes.
Sounds quite nice. I was just thinking there's actually quite a few similarities, I'd say, between like an Oxford student and then an Oxford Brookes student. Like, let's be honest, Netflix has us all in the
Gotta be
evenings.
done. Got to be done.
And like to be honest, I think that links in quite nicely to my question. I was going to ask you, like, do you find yourself in Oxford Centre quite a lot, considering like your campus is towards Headington Way, so it's more outside of the city centre. So I was like, how frequently do you find yourself in the city centre then?
It's funny what you say about the campus. Ironically, I learned this one more recently, like within my second year as opposed to my first year. Brookes is technically considered a campus uni because its main campus, the Headington campus, is based in Headington, and that's where the business school and a couple of other of the major schools are based, and that's where the main campus is. But there are different sections of the university dotted around the place. I know my friend Keisha, she studies in a completely different building near, can't think of where the place is now, but it's not too far away from Headington, but it's in a different part of Oxford, and it just goes to show that it's not just in Headington. So there is different places you can go to dependent on your course. But as far as the city centre is concerned, I'm there almost every day because I mean I live in Cowley, and as I'm sure you're aware, Abbie, Cowley is full of lovely restaurants, and I mean there's plenty to do down Cowley. But city centre's about 10 minutes walk from Cowley, depending on where you are. And city centre's, it's a great hub for all those different things. I think that we're in the talks about playing some junkyard golf. We're getting that arranged with flatmates, so that'll be interesting. But yeah, no, I'm in at town centre almost every day. Yeah.
That's really nice, actually, and I like how you mentioned Cowley because it's worth noting actually that a lot of Oxford students will actually live out alongside Oxford Brookes students. So, and Cowley is one of the main sort of places that you get the mixture of the students. And I was just wondering, in terms of like the whole living situation in Cowley, when you were looking for your house, when you were trying to like look for a house to rent, you know, what was the competition like? Did you feel like there was quite a lot of competition between Oxford Brookes and Oxford students? Because obviously you're both sort of almost vying for the same places.
So I didn't really get too involved with the actual search process of a house. I knew I had friends around me that were focusing mainly on that, and I just sort of looked at the photos and vetted them and was like, yes, no, depending on whether we were going to view them or not. And we looked for a house quite early on because there was a lot of a lot of talk from people saying, "Oh, get a house quick! You know, you're never going to get one otherwise. Get one quickly, based on you get one near the university and all that stuff." And it turns out that was all more or less a hoax. Like the stress really didn't need to be there because there will always be houses available one way or another. It may not be in the prime location or something like that, but like I feel like we didn't need to stress as much as we did in order to get our house. But I can't complain. We did get very fortunate. We're at a nice halfway point between the university and town centre, so we can walk between the two really, really easily. So obviously, the sooner you get your house sorted, the better. So you can get prime locations and stuff like that. But as for competing against Oxford students, I don't think there was any problems there. I don't remember. Yeah, we haven't any issues with that. So yeah, it wasn't that bad, I have to admit.
I suppose, yeah, the benefit of, I suppose, going to Oxford Brookes is that your term starts earlier, and so
Mm,
that you're sort of encouraged to start looking for secondary accommodation earlier,
that's true, yeah.
which is obviously a positive, and like rightfully so. Like you should definitely start looking. Um, and so I was just thinking, like, obviously we talked about now how like the students do seem to mix, particularly in Cowley. And I was just wondering, like, in terms of the nightlife, then would you say there's quite like a well mixed nightlife between both universities, or do you reckon that it's sort of made or built to be quite separate?
I've not noticed any form of divide. If there are Oxford Brookes students out and about, there will be Oxford students out and about, and they will they will they will come together. Nightclubs or what have you. There's no way to distinguish between the two. So you'll make friends regardless. Like there's nothing that says Oxford Brookes students in this room and University of in this room. Keep them separate. We don't want those ruining each other, there's no arguments or fights or anything like that. There's no competition. There's nothing like that. So, yeah, no, as far as I'm concerned, as far as I'm aware, it's fully sort of combined. Yeah, happy days.
To be honest, I think I'd agree with that. And I'm not even going to lie. I think I've had some really great times just like spending time with Oxford Brookes students in the different clubs. I know there's the clubs towards Cowley, such as like the Bullingdon, the O2, which are normally very full of like Oxford Brookes students. And
Usually, anyway.
well, usually, yeah, yeah, not at present time still. But yeah, no, and I think it's so nice to have this mix of students and to be able to sort of change up, I suppose, because you've always like when you're in the uni of Oxford, you're surrounded by like-minded people who are very into their subjects, very sort of work dominated. Obviously we're fun as well. But yeah, and it's just nice. I suppose it's nice to like mix with other students from from Oxford Brookes to just like, I don't know, just to get that different element,
Yeah,
and
you'll
just to
always
see
get
the way they
the
think. Yeah.
you'll always get the Brooks not books motto thrown in there. That's one thing as Brooks students pride ourselves in. Definitely more of the sociable party university, I'd say. But that obviously that different outlook on sort of the university life rubs off on Oxford students, and then vice versa. So it is nice, like you say, to have the two come together. It makes things really sort of funny and interesting. I like to, whenever I meet up with some friends from the University of Oxford, I like to ask them, I always ask them this quick little question. Well, I mean, I ask you this one all the time. How many assessments have you got ready to do? And then, you're there reading them off. I've got about 5, 10, 15, what have you. And then I'm there thinking, oh, yeah, funny you should say that. How many have I got now? Oh, yeah, I've got none due.
You're just making me emotional, like. Oh gosh. So I just thought, like, obviously you talked about how like you seem to like talk to Oxford students quite a lot. I mean that may be possibly through the affiliation with obviously me and also Mary, who is also in Oxford.
Mhm.
But I assume that also like there is a lot of mixing between the students. So I was just thinking, like, in your opinion then, do you reckon there's like a lot of opportunities for the universities to mix? And like what sort of opportunities are these? Like, you know, would you say Oxford Brookes students are allowed to quite freely mix in with like Oxford traditions and stuff like that?
I've spoken to a few. I've got a few friends in Oxford Brookes who say they've got friends in University of Oxford, whether that be friends from their previous school and they've gone up and just gone slightly separate ways. But they've still maintained friendships, and I've been told they've gone. Oxford Brookes students have gone to formals. They've been to their friends' rooms. They've experienced sort of all the Oxford stuff that way. Also, obviously, nightclubs and clubbing and stuff. You make friends there, and then that's a great way for Oxford Oxford Brookes and University of to come together. Also, sporting events. I know there's some very funny stories about jokey conflicts with University of Oxford and University of Oxford Brookes having their individual chants at each other. Yeah, that's another great way for the two universities to come together and express themselves there. But yeah, I've heard of a lot of stories of Brookes students sort of making affiliations with University of and vice versa. I know a few Oxford people who are glad of their Brookes connections as well. I know of University of Oxford students who've been in. I've heard on numerous occasions, because obviously University of Oxford is collegiate, and you all have your individual libraries, don't you? I've had numerous University of Oxford students come into Headington campus and see our massive tiered library. So obviously our library is just the one library, but it's really big because it's between a lot more students, and it's a big tiered library which goes right up the centre of the John Henry Brookes building at the back. And lots of Oxford students have told me that they've been very impressed with the scale, the size, and the selection of books available in that library.
I was impressed by it. Like it like blew me away. I was like, whoa. Like I thought,
I've
yeah.
not really been to the library personally, but I've heard it's meant to be great.
Oh god, Brooks not books.
Exactly.
Oh, classic. I think that's just, it's so nice to hear that there's such good integration between the universities. Like, and like you mentioned, especially sporting events.
Yes.
So like I know the varsity games between Oxford University and then Oxford Brookes are like really big, fun games, and like you said, it sort of brings the two universities together. And like you said, there's like lots of chanting and like
Oh, yeah.
it's quite good. It's a good atmosphere, and I think like I don't think there's ever any sort of animosity between the two, which I think is always really good, because at the end of the day we're sharing the same space. You know, we're all trying to achieve the same thing, no matter, you know, our backgrounds, how we got to it, you know, where we came from, etc. I mean, look at us two. We're literally from the same background, but we go to the two different universities. Like, it's literally, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I was just thinking, like, taking a more sort of serious approach now. I was just thinking, like, is there any time that you or maybe some friends may have experienced like the potentially that you've like gone through something, and maybe an Oxford student may have taken precedence over you? Do you reckon there's some sort of like have you ever experienced something where maybe an Oxford student has been prioritized over you, some form of potential discrimination at all?
I can't say I've experienced that at all. I don't know of any cases ever. I've never heard one Oxford Brookes student complain saying, "Oh, that so and so from uni of got precedence over me over one thing or another." No, I can't say I've ever experienced that at all.
That's really
Yeah.
good. I'm actually really glad to hear that. Because like I said before, we're sharing the same space. You know, we're doing the same things. Like if anything, it would enrage me if yeah, for any reason Oxford University students were taking priority over Oxford Brookes students. Um, Fab. Good stuff. Um, so like I was just thinking, how different then would you say the universities are? Because obviously Oxford Brookes is more modern, like you said, the workload is less, and then Oxford has got a really long history. Do you think that the history of Oxford makes it different? Do you reckon that causes Oxford to be viewed differently? Like, in what ways would you say they're different, if they are different?
So I've been fortunate enough to experience sort of formal dinners and Oxford events through yourself and Mary, and I can definitely say there is quite a significant difference between the way the two universities work. Obviously, I've not been to a University of Oxford lecture, so I can't really speak on that behalf. But from what I've experienced from just the general culture, the University of Oxford seems to be more formal, more value driven. Because obviously they've been going for a long time. They know how to do things and stuff like that. Slightly more conservative, I want to say. Whereas Brookes, because it's more modern, the building itself reflects how modern the university actually is, which is, in my opinion, a nice change. Because don't get me wrong, I love all the beautiful old buildings around the town centre, but Headington campus is a nice change of scene, if you get me, just because of how modern and big glass windows, interesting architecture and stuff like that. So it's a nice take from that. But because the university itself is much more modern, I find that it has ever so slightly less of a restrictive air, I want to say.
No,
You
I know what
feel
you
a bit
mean.
more
Yeah.
free, that you can a little bit more relaxed. But that's not to take anything away from University of Oxford. But I just felt like I couldn't run round doing stupid things like when I was within a college, for example, in Oxford. Whereas I feel like Brookes to be a lot more lenient about. Obviously, no one's expecting you to run around and do stupid things at university. But, yeah, that's just sort of how I perceive the two. Obviously, with the workload, there's quite a difference there. So we have the freedom to do more and explore more. Lecture-wise, I know you guys have had quite a lot of lectures. You have quite a lot in one day. But generally, with Oxford Brookes, it's one, maybe two, maximum two lectures and two seminars each day. So I know that can be quite different between the two universities. Teaching as well. I know University of Oxford prides itself in its one-to-one sort of tutor sessions, and I know the students get close with the lecturers and tutors. There's a close connection there. I'd say personally with Brookes, it's lesser so. So because Brookes is a much sort of bigger university with less available staff at teaching each individual module and subject. What Brookes does as a compromise for that, and to get lecturers to know their students as close as possible, they have seminar groups, which is more like a classroom, which is around 30 students, if not less. So you can get to know your tutors that way, your lecturers that way. But again, it's not quite as it's not quite the same as the University of Oxford with the one-to-one sort of tutoring sessions. So I suppose there's a difference in that as well.
Yeah, I suppose the tutorial system in Oxford is very like it's a very Oxbridge thing. So like
Yeah.
it's you can't really, I mean, I know think places like Durham, I've heard Durham, Lancaster, a few other universities do try to adopt it every now and then, but it's very sort of like an Oxbridge thing. So I suppose that is like one of like a really defining feature that makes Oxford different from Oxford Brookes. And
Yeah.
also I think it's quite nice how you sort of note it, you mentioned how like Oxford Brookes you feel more free to do what you want purely on the
Yeah.
basis that it's not collegiate, and like when you're inside a college obviously there's sort of rules you have to follow, you know, you can't just run riot, you know, around the college, etc. And I think it's nice that you said how you feel almost more restricted, um and there's that sort of air of sort of like, you know, there's like authority there that you've got to sort of like follow, which is obviously that's the case. But then I want to make that like clear to people who are listening that um that's generally the view that students go into, or students on the outside have this view, but like
I'm no exception.
oh gosh, but like as a student on the inside talking to you now, it is a lot more lax. you do have the freedom to have as much fun as you want to. And I just think, unfortunately, I think because of like the past that Oxford has, it's so old, it's got such a deep rooted history. I think it has that air of like being quite almost intimidating. But I think like when you get there, it is actually a lot more laid back, and it is like a genuine normal university, despite like all the stories you've heard about it. But
Exactly what
yeah,
you
as you
say.
did say, like,
I imagine like once you're accustomed to it, you get used to it and you get
yeah,
comfortable, and then you realise that you're and able to do exactly. But obviously, the only times I've been there is for formal events and a few other niche occasions, and it's only because I've not become accustomed to it. I'm not used to it. I don't really know the rules and stuff like that. That I just felt I needed to be more reserved.
yeah.
So like you say, it's an outside appearance from looking in. So yeah.
Yeah, cool. So I thought like just to like wrap it all up, I was just wondering like what would be your advice then to a student who doesn't get into Oxford? So who might just potentially miss the grades and then get, what would you say to them then for having to go to any other university then,
Um,
including
I'd
Brookes?
say even Brooks. I'd say don't kick yourself. Um, University of Oxford is a very good uni. Everyone knows that. But from my personal opinion, the workload is very intense, and perhaps you might find yourself mingling with a different university that's maybe slightly less academically focused or maybe less workload intense, and you'll find that your university life may be sort of more relaxed and more enjoyable. Is probably a good way of putting it, because obviously our youthful years are few and far between, and we want to make the most of them while we can. And obviously, university is very important, and we're all here to get our degrees. But we also want to enjoy ourselves at the same time and keep positive. So don't kick yourself if you don't get the grades for University of Oxford. There are so many options out there. I didn't know I wanted to come to Brookes. I had no idea where I wanted to go. I just wound up here. Having visited the city, I really loved it here. So I thought, I want to go to Oxford. I'll just go to Brookes. Didn't even know what the campus looked like or anything like that. Just stumbled upon it and was like, wow, this campus is really nice. And then stumbled into all of my lectures and all that stuff, just sort of blundered in, and I couldn't be happier. It's worked out great for me. So yeah, piece of advice, everything always works out for you. So do not stress, and best of luck.
Oh, that's so good, and I think I'll literally second that. Like Oxford is not the be all and end all,
Yeah,
and if you don't happen to make the grades, or you just don't get offered a place, or for some reason you don't apply or whatever, like don't be gutted. Don't think, oh, that's it. My chances of being successful are gone. It's absolute rubbish. Like, any university in Britain is amazing, and a degree is what you make of it. So,
exactly.
yeah, even if you have to go through clearing, or um, you know, even if you have to go through adjustment, hey, just like it's all an experience, and you'll learn from it. And I know that everyone who I've talked to who hasn't made the cut to get into Oxbridge, they absolutely love where they go. And yeah, like you said, you'll be able to have more fun, more
Exactly.
time to have a bit of fun.
That's what you
Anyway,
want.
yeah, of course, in our youthful days.
Of course, of course.
Okay, so that's all we have time for today. So we've learned some really interesting stuff about Oxford life from the perspective of an Oxford University student and an Oxford Brookes student. And so thank you so much for sharing your experience with us, Jack,
That's no
and
worries.
also for joining us at Oxford from the Inside. Also, thank you to our followers for listening to this podcast or watching this video. And also remember to follow us on Instagram. Our Instagram handle is at Oxford from the Inside, or no spaces altogether. And also check out our Facebook page, LinkedIn, Twitter for like updates on our next episodes. And then also, check out like Spotify, YouTube, like I said, Instagram, like you name it, we're literally on it, like any sort of social media platform you can think of. And yeah, so I hope you all stay safe and well. And until next time, goodbye.
Bye.